All right, joining me now. He seems like the man of the week.
Yes.
But not for the best reason. But listen, this is
this is a good reason, Jimmy. It really is.
In the sports media business.
Yeah.
From Around the Horn, which has its final episode on Friday, May 23rd. So some of you hear this before, some of you after. Second time on the SI Media podcast. Tony Reali.
Thank you,
how
Jimmy.
Are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing amazing. You know what?
Good.
First off, your friends saying nice things about you is a top-notch feeling.
Yeah.
Second, I was called in an interview I did this month, the normally reclusive Reali, which is an absurd thing for anyone who knows. I'm on TV every day. So I'm not reclusive. This is not Ted Kaczynski. But
I think you're a little reclusive.
I don't do interviews because I have a chance to talk and I use my own voice every day. And it's not because I don't want to talk to you, Jimmy, and you specifically. You and I have shared some very good conversations about work and about life that I appreciate. So
me too.
I think I said no to you for a longer time than I did other people. I don't know why. I mean, why? Because I do genuinely like you, and this is going to now throw the whole interview off. Ask me any hard question you like, but I like talking to people this week. We do this thing with our kids. The teachers say this: we need some documentation. That means they take video during class so they can post it on their website and send it home to you. It's nice to have this week documented for me, this month documented for me, and this has been a long goodbye. I wouldn't have had it that way. I would have preferred maybe 1 week and out.
Well, here's what's funny. I mean, I don't know if I should say this, but I'll let the listeners in. I despise it when I have a guest who has basically been on the circuit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm a car wash right now. I am a car wash.
I have to say, with you, I was not upset even one shred because I was like, I just want to talk to Tony. It doesn't need to be like, listen, you want to give me all these scoops and all that. That's one thing. But like, obviously, I get, you doing a lot of interviews this week after not normally doing them. And you were kind enough to speak to me when the news officially broke into a podcast, but I did it in the column. But I usually hate being like the eighth guy to do the interview. But in this case, like, I feel like there's no pressure for me to ask any questions. We can just have a conversation. And
I thought about this. I'm going to give you, I'll give you something I haven't said out loud to anybody. There's this expression, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
FOMO. I don't have fear of missing out in life. I mean, I feel like I do what I want to do. And then there's no disputing that. I have a melancholy of missing out right now, a Momo, because the Knicks are good.
Right.
And the show's ending in the middle, Jimmy, of the NBA playoffs. I went to the game, 2 weeks ago, as a person, right? But I'm seeing all my colleagues on the front row or in the press row or whatever. And it's a great story. And I'm a New York basketball fan, and I grew up in Jersey, and I went to more Nets games growing up because that was the easier ticket to get to. But I just love it all, right?
Right.
And this is the run you dream of, and I want to talk about it on TV, on this show that I've given, and that is is a source of melancholy for me to the point where I'm watching these games, and my reaction is surprising me. Oh, it's too good. It's getting close down the end. Oh, this is a great moment. And I am now I don't feel jaded about sports at all. I love sports maybe not the same way, but with the same fervor that I have since I started the show. But this story is hurting me in a different way, or it's hurting is the word I just used. So I guess that's what it is,
Well, it seems based on all the interviews you did this week, if you want to find an outlet to discuss the Knicks, you'll be able to do that.
I know that. But
I wouldn't worry.
You talk about outlets. Yeah. I didn't have an outlet. I had an open vein is the way I viewed it in my head. And ESPN didn't view it this way, nor should they, But I felt this way about this show for 23 years, and especially when I grew into the job and felt comfortable.
Right.
Like, I know how much I like having fun, and people have said the show got serious. In certain places, of course it did, but this was a fun show.
Right.
I'm a fun person.
I want to get into a couple of things about the cancellation, but since you brought that up, I just want to say this quickly because I've read the theories about that ESPN may have canceled the show because it got too woke, which
I can hear that. I can take the criticism and
but here's my thing. Yeah. Here's why I think that's an incredibly stupid theory. Mm-hmm. the people who are upset about Around the Horn being quote unquote woke, those people are lost. They're not coming back. So
Maybe,
to cancel
yeah.
a show to cater to those people makes zero sense. So I don't buy that theory, and I don't even want to discuss it. So let me ask you this.
Okay.
Go ahead. If you want to, you want to say something?
Well, no. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I am of the opinion, always, you have an opinion, prove why your opinion is right now. So come and ask me about the stories that you felt went too far, and I would happily talk out my thought process in that. I think my opinion, and I'll prove it here, is that it was 10, 15 stories in 50,000. So now you're going to say it was people, it was human beings that got too far. And I'm going to tell you, I know in my heart of hearts that, well, in my own family, I have people who view the world entirely different than me, and we get along perfectly fine. And I'm sure the people who are calling the show that woke and too far, I would get along great with them face to face right now. We'd have the same conversation that I have with everyone in my family. And then the last thing is, I can acknowledge I did a lot of TV and I talked on TV, and there's 3 or 4 I would want to take back. I don't think that's not a controversial thing to say. So come at me with
well, I'll come at you with
maybe, but
I'll come at you with this. Give me one thing you would take back then.
Well, I mean, I absolutely went on TV, and this was now cited again, so it stirred it up in me again. The week after we lost Amadeo, or 2 weeks after Amadeo. And I'm incredibly raw at that moment, but I'm also intentional. And I know I want to come on. It's the day after Father's Day. And I want to talk about what I just experienced in my life. And I was given the opportunity by a fellow panelist. And this was maybe an example for people for the show now really allowing for the full show of a human and serious stuff, sad stuff, right? I'm only going to ESPN for an escape. Totally understand that. This is what I decided to do. I was intentional. I wanted to talk about what I went through in my life. And at that moment, I was an ABC News correspondent as well. And I'm following an ABC News, story. And I'm really preoccupied in my life. So I literally said the words I'm thinking of: families that are separated right now during Father's Day, kids in cages, came out of my mouth. I have to own that I said that. And I have to get back in my head. I felt like I sourced it with somebody that was in the greater family of my network. I would not have said that again if you gave me another chance. What I was trying to do in that moment was both. I bared my soul, but I did that. I was trying to connect other people, which is something I was trying to. My experience of losing something. Well, Father's Day is a tough day for a lot of people. They've lost children, and Father's Day could be different for people right now who are being separated. And I have to own what that is. So that is my thing. Yeah.
Like I said, I sort of think if again, the person
I wasn't
who
doing a dissertation on that wasn't bringing up, and we start with the political news of the day. But I fully have to own, and I take what that is, and clearly it's made an impression on me because I have framed how I would talk about stories and evolved even after that in ways that addressed some of the concerns. Again, those headlines or people in my family have pressed to me. Again, I'm not coming from a place where I don't understand it. I understand it. I get it.
Did you ever have anyone at ESPN tell you to tone it down?
Not once. There's no controversy with this show, about the show. No retraction we ever gave on a story. No, now that you want to talk about what's happening everywhere, we've never been threatened by anything to say like, oh, is this a lawsuit? Have we talked about a person? Have we done this? Have we done this in a poor way? Never in a million years. Two notes I can remember in my whole life were keep on doing what you're doing. And that was I was somebody, and again, there are pros and cons to doing this, who operated in their own little space and wanted to do that every single day. And I didn't, I got feedback twice in 23 years, maybe. That's not feedback. That's just.
Well, I'll say this one more time for the dopes out there. They're not listening to this podcast, but maybe someone can let them know. If someone tuned out of Around the Horn and they're quote unquote done with ESPN because the show's woke, and ESPN now gets rid of Around the Horn and puts in some other sports show, those people aren't watching it. They're lost. So it's just I say that because I do
Yeah.
think I find it, as someone who just covers sports media, I find it incredibly frustrating that we can't get a legitimate reason why the show was canceled. I can't imagine what this has been like for you, who hosts the show and
Yeah.
can't get a legitimate reason. And I'll preface it by this: if ESPN is going to make a big deal about direct to consumer and bringing back Rich Eisen, it makes this decision even more mind boggling.
Yeah, I can understand all of that. I had to get to a place where I didn't need an answer, maybe, because I mean, with the absence of explanation and the silence, I mean, said enough for me. And then I maybe come from a school of thought that everything in TV goes away, so that's what's going to happen. But I will say, even after having that first meeting, and I had probably 2 meetings in total. But that first meeting, I was sure I could change their mind. I've said this now publicly in different places, so I'm sorry to repeat it for you, but I was sure
okay.
I would, be able to change their mind, go into a room and finally do maybe those handshakes that other people do on the regular. And I didn't need to go in there and be like, wait a sec, our ratings are exactly where you would want them to be. We're up. I mean, I know what our ratings are. And I see press releases coming out for other shows with rating numbers that are maybe that or lower even. And you're releasing a press release. I
Right.
know how we're driving ratings. I know how profitable, without knowing a number, but knowing how the economics of business has to work. That's called the happy hour. It's not called the happy PTI 30 minutes.
Right.
So
Right.
I can be proud in knowing my show had a place, and it's their show. They can do whatever they want with it, but they're not going to fool me in thinking the show wasn't making money or the ratings weren't good,
Right.
or that the people involved with the show were too something, because the people involved with the show are frontlining the greatest, the show that just won an Emmy, or the show that just won, is getting promoted, or the next morning show, radio show. These are all around the horners.
Right.
I'm happy that my friends got to go to the next show and succeed there. It's not a point of anything other than pride, but that needs to be part of the story. When you tell me the show got shut down because of this, well, the people who work for the show are being promoted,
Right. Right. Do you think you talked earlier, we mentioned earlier, the word recluse, which it basically means you don't do interviews. You don't do a ton of interviews, but also you're not one of these guys. I'm not either. And I dread the fear of like maybe having to do it at some point, but like, you're not one of these guys that like takes out his iPhone, hits video and starts screaming into it and posting videos. We don't see you all over with the walk,
I haven't been doing that.
Like, do you think that hurt you at all? You think that was maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I think banging a drum, more loudly. I'm a drummer, so I should have been marching to the beat of my own drummer, because I am that drummer, right? I'm such a cheesy guy. I'm sorry. But the point is, yes, I know how the greater culture would work and the business would work. There is a I was making TV because it's a TV show, right?
Right.
I was making YouTube videos 10 years ago, and the keys to that YouTube got taken away from us. So I was onto something, and I was really happy with the creative part. I'm talking about the Breaking Bad season finale, and we're doing Around the Horn as a Breaking Bad thing, and I'm making a music video, or the greatest moments in Around the Horn history, or companion pieces. Ask Me Anything. So we were doing things like that, and then that got taken away, and that's the type of thing that gets rewarded now. Where's your YouTube presence? How many impressions are you getting? Well, we had that, and we were doing behind the scenes, and then it was, so I recognize I should have probably fought for that with a much louder voice.
Yeah.
But I can go on ESPN.com on any day, and I know how great PTI is ratings wise and the imprint that it puts on. And I'm not even seeing videos of PTI on there. I'm not seeing videos of Around the Horn on there. But we're seeing, the shows that they're making a decision to put out there. Should I have been? I can regret that, saying that out loud. Absolutely. That's not bemoaning those other shows, But
so, and it is amazing, because now it's YouTube, and clearly they would love to have what you were doing 10 years ago.
But
now
we have an idea that I feel sports and traditional sports media is still underserved on YouTube, or vice versa. Did I get that right? I mean, there is. I mean, I've been trying to do the research for 9 months of this, but I think we can celebrate what some of the shows have as a presence on YouTube. Your ESPN shows or other shows. Sometimes they're just a simulcast of radio shows, right? And I can go to some music producer who I love, Rick Beato, who's a middle-aged dude who was in the engineer room with whatever, name your band, Toto, Alice in Chains. And he's got 3 times what any traditional sports media presence has. And he's doing top 10 guitar solos, which is a wonderful sports debate. Just apply that. So I think, so we haven't figured it out by any means, how
absolutely.
to get sports content on YouTube and doing it in a good polish. And I've been doing a lot of research into that, or, market research, and exploring. Yeah. That's some ownership over that. I can, the people that I've admired, what they've carved out. These are names that I didn't know about, but now Cleo Abram, Marcus Brownlee, Rick Beato, I just mentioned. These are people who are doing YouTube very well. Nobody in traditional sports media has a footprint like those people, and that's, something that is available to myself and everybody, but available to me now that I have a lot of time on my hands on May 24th.
All right, well, let me get into that a little bit. So the last show is Friday, May 23rd. You have a contract with ESPN through August.
Yeah.
So does that mean, but you don't know today if you're staying with, like, there's a chance you may not stay with ESPN. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. I am approaching myself through the conversations I haven't had and the conversations I would still hope to have in the future with ESPN as absolutely a wonderful free agent, much like you would think of a player who's Juan Soto, who's coming up. Not that I'm comparing myself to Juan Soto. I'd certainly be a different player. I would say Shohei Ohtani. Let's go ahead and be my own agent. Now, I don't think there's anybody who's come into a job market. I gave you this before, who has had 23 years of one show with 4,900 episodes, who is proudly put himself out in the way I have, which is to say I like being positive and uniting and unifying and yeah. So yeah, Ohtani, go ahead, print that headline.
Obviously it would come down to, like, what the show is or what the job is or what your role is, but do you want to stay at ESPN? I mean, I'm thinking about, well, let me let you answer that first.
Yeah.
Do you want to stay?
I want to hear from ESPN.
And you haven't heard from them?
I've had 2 conversations over the last 4 months. I certainly sent some thank you emails and got a response, if you want to count that. They have a lot on their plate right now, and I recognize that. I'm doing a great week of shows right now, and I'd love to hear how they feel about them too. And I hope to have that conversation too. I want to. I know I've been in these. I've negotiated for myself in the past. I have an agent now, but I've also been my own agent before. And you've been in these rooms before where people are. It's a hard negotiation. You understand that, and they tell you, "Well, I know you. You're going to bet on yourself," which is a wonderful way to tell somebody we're about to bring you down a little bit, but you have to prove to us. Well, I want to bet on someone else. You're going to have to show me you're betting on yourself in any conversation I'm having. And that goes for everybody, because that's how I feel about myself.
Are you worried at all, even just a little bit?
I have no worry in the world.
No, let me finish.
Finish the question. I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize.
This past week, doing all these interviews where you might say something that could piss someone at ESPN off, or you're like, I'm going to let it fly, and they're not even really negotiating.
I don't have anything I feel like I can say that you're going to tell me, speaking of truth, that we've talked a couple of times, and maybe I would want more conversations. I have no qualms about saying that, and then they would agree with that. I know they have appreciated me, for the sheer fact that I was on TV for 23 years. Well, and I know, but do I feel? I don't feel hurt, even that we're not having the conversations now. We can have the conversations next month. Right. Do I feel pressure to say the right thing at all times? I mean, I've been on TV for 23 years. I know I'm going to say. I said I felt the right things to you, Jimmy, heart to heart. In a previous interview, and a headline came out that kept me up at night. Not from you, another headline that on top of that. That's how I am as a person, and it shouldn't keep me up at night. People who love me would tell me, but it kept me up at night, and I had to do the things to make it right afterwards for enough for me. So yes, there has to be an awareness of that. I wouldn't call it a fear. I am in control of my own destiny, and I don't allow that to be a source of anxiety. I recognize anytime I talk, I lose control of the message the second it comes out of my mouth.
Right. We'll get into that other thing. I'll just say this because I feel like it needs to be said. If you host a show for 23 years, the ratings are good, it gets canceled, there's no reason for it getting canceled, and then they only have 2 conversations with you, that's shitty. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion. But you don't have to react to that. I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Mm. Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate anyone getting anything off their chest. I don't want anything on anybody's chest.
All right. And then let me ask you, so we could go here. When I spoke to, so, it was also, what was weird about it is there was a report months before the official cancellation that the show was going to get canceled.
Yes, that's when I first knew something was up,
right.
But
then they announced the official cancellation.
Yeah.
And then we spoke, and we had talked about the future a little bit, and you talked about hosting being something you would be interested in.
Yeah.
You mentioned MLB Network, and then you mentioned the Red Zone. And at that time, it was kind of thought of that Scott Hansen was going to leave the Red Zone, even go to NBC. Yeah. It actually came out, I think, today that it looks like he signed with NBC to do the Olympics, but looks like he's staying with Red Zone. Yeah. So, and I know you didn't like putting your name on like that specific job. So I'll let you say whatever you want to say about that.
Well, now that it's been brought up yet again, I mean, I am not in the business of talking about other people's jobs or trying to take other people's jobs. I have maybe adapted in my mind as I continue to do some thinking and work on myself in this 3-month span. I'm the type that wants to innovate the next chair and the next job. And that's where my focus is right now. So it's not even like, so let me say full stop. I think Scott Hansen is phenomenal at the Red Zone. I think he should be doing it for the rest of as long as he wants. And I think Ernie Johnson is phenomenal at that. And I know he's announced his retirement. And there was another time where, yes, I mean, what an admirable dude. It seems everything.
Wait. Ernie Johnson didn't announce a retirement.
Did he not? Do I have that wrong?
You have that wrong.
Well,
he's staying with inside the NBA.
Okay. So, you know what? I can't possibly know all the jobs in the world, nor am I thinking about
it's okay.
I have people I admire in my life that aren't in my life. Let's say it like that. Right. So I think about, wow, Scott Hansen's really good at his job. Wow, Ernie Johnson is really good at his job. I'm in a small little window, Jimmy, as you know. I'm not a pontificating host, and I'm certainly not trying to be an analyst, and I'm not trying to do a lot of things. I'm trying to stay in. I like hosting in a way that maybe is not even in vogue now. People say be the point guard. They used to say be the point guard, and now point guard shoot from 35 feet. I say be the center and snap the ball and set the play. That's how I like to host in the traditional media. Now that you expand it to a different universe, I know I can do other things. I'm not just a center, right. But in those spaces is how. So I talked about some other jobs. I mean, just the institution of shows like the Red Zone and that type of energy was what I was talking about. But to bring it back to where I am today, I'm happy and excited and know about great opportunities that I can forge while talking to the great properties and the great sports or the great sporting events. But these are now chairs that are yet to be invented that I'm thinking of, which makes me a much safer place now for my nights at sleep when I mention other people's names, as I do, because I feel like I know people. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I don't know anybody. I've been in the same room as Woody Page 6 times. I've done 4,000 episodes of TV with him.
Wow.
I saw Ramona Shelburne today for the 4th time. And I've done episodes of TV today. I love Michael Smith. He returned to Around the Horn.
You guys were like a COVID show before COVID.
Exactly. So I have all these. There's an expression now that I'm trying parasocial relationships in my mind with people. And maybe I've done that in the past interviews where I've talked about how I admire other people. And you think about what could be a path. Let me see what they've done and I'll do that. But the reality is now I'm well into a place where I'm comfortable. And the landscape is comfortable where you forge your own path. And that finally I got some resolution in my head over 6 months of the soul searching, where it was just like, what are the jobs that I could do? And you're only thinking about the jobs that exist.
Right.
And you should be thinking about the next job that you could create. Or at least, that's how I'm going to approach it.
Well, one question on the contract, then I'll move on from that. It's up in August. The last show is May 13th.
Yeah.
So does that mean you can't negotiate with another network until after August? Like, are they going to leave you in
Jimmy,
limbo? I know you think agents
yeah.
handle that, but
yeah.
I would hope you're at least able to talk.
There are windows where we can have wide open conversations with everybody, and that's
Okay.
the windows that those contracts always allow for. So that's a nice part of this experience that I can talk to people.
If I said to you right now, Tony, you can pick anywhere to work. I'm not going to ask you where. I'm not. No. I'm not asking you where. I'm not asking you where. But would you have an answer?
My answer, I think I've said this now. I'm going back to other places. Would I have an answer? Yeah. I walked out of, I'm floating on air after a couple of conversations I've just had. And this isn't even like I wanted these job interviews. No, these aren't job interviews. These, I'm at a stage where I think people know me, and I'm at a stage where I've done, interviews and people have reached out that I haven't talked to. And that's a great feeling too.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you'll be fine. You host. When you host.
Please, Jimmy. I appreciate you saying that. You're in a Tom Sawyer at your own funeral situation, if they understand that reference or something. And I'm the feelingest person that a lot of people know. Especially in this little space of sports TV, right? How are you feeling?
Right.
I'm walking on air. I'm calling my shot. I'm going out exactly like I want. In some ways, I don't think the show should be ending, but I think that now that it's ending, I am as proud of the TV we did on a Wednesday afternoon with a panel where we were just winging it and having fun today. And I know people have reached out to me and said, I just happened to watch the show today. That's as good as it's been. And now these aren't friends and these aren't fans. These are movers and shakers in the industry.
Well, I don't want to get into like a whole philosophical thing, but here's what bums me out about that. Like you say, you heard from someone, it was a great show. I almost feel like
that episode was a great show. Yeah.
I feel like such a negative Nelly, but I feel like that doesn't even matter anymore. It's just who's the loudest, who can throw something on social media that goes viral.
You're a negative Nelly, Jimmy.
Yeah,
this is what you are. You're bringing in that little that part. You know what? Maybe all of us age into that. I'm not trying to make a joke about how you view it. I don't view things that way. It could be to my diminishment. It could be the reason why, the shows. I mean, I'm not trying to be. I'm trying to be me. Right. I'm going to operate, and if you build it, they will come for the next shows, or they won't come. But I'm going to do it. I try to be myself.
Got it.
And I recognize, again, back to the previous comment, this might not land with everybody. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I know when I'm in the room with somebody, I'm going to win that. We're going to win together. I'm going to bring us together. Everybody. I mean, I feel that way. I'm going for it at least. I'm going to try. I'm going to try to find our common ground. I haven't really found one yet where I haven't been able to find common ground. But that's the side of the conversation is I think, we are in a space now where good stuff can be created and you don't have to just, be one certain way. That's why I thought, again, I could convince the people who are making decisions.
When you say you tried to
you want differentiators on your network, right? I mean, I was told, this show got too serious recently, and the word "too" was the one I would take umbrage with, or lack of a word. It got serious at times, but I'm walking around in sneakers and a t-shirt and having fun and laughing more than the average host would on a normal day. And there's a lightness of being to a lot of the segments we do. And we did, how many a million who you got, and a million, but the show 20 years ago, we may have done a hot dog versus hamburger debate in Out of Bounds. I wasn't doing that anymore. So certainly, this is not I'm not trying to bare my soul here and say this is just what it was. At the commercial break for the first year or two of the show, they would show dancing videos of Britney Spears. I don't know why. Jessica Alba. I don't know why. I may have been on the show when that happened for the first 50 episodes of my hosting. And we're not doing that. So is that the type of lightness that we're missing now? Well, we don't need that.
Yeah.
Other shows can do that. That's fine.
When you, and just to be clear, when you say you heard the show was too serious, you don't mean from ESPN.
Oh goodness, no! I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm just talking about.
No, I know someone.
Conversation I had.
Right.
I was happy. A reporter reached out to me to talk. I have no problem saying it's Andrew Marchand. Is somebody I've talked to in the past, and he's written a very wonderful column about me in the past. And he has an opinion of the show. Prove why your opinion is right. This is the code that we live by on the show. And too serious, I would say it got more heartful. It evolved. Are you going to tell me a show shouldn't evolve?
Well, here's what I would say.
A show is going to get canceled before you, if before 23 years if we didn't evolve, or you're going to say somebody said the show wasn't this. That's fine.
Well, here's what I would say. I would say two things. One, if someone complains or says the show gets too serious sometimes, you're a show that's on 5 days a week.
Yeah, that's the 23. That's the 50,000 discussion argument.
You've been on for 23 years. If there's a serious show every now and then, everyone can deal with it. And again, if you think the show is too serious, okay, that's fine, but the ratings are still good. So,
well, yeah, that part of it is that's business of sports media people that can have that conversation. For me, you wake up one day and Naomi Osaka is pulling out and saying, I have to talk about myself here. We're going to have that conversation. And then we're talking about the framing of a story where a person said, I'm a human, not an athlete. And that's an interesting conversation that day. It's not the only one we have. And we'll continue to have but that conversation it was a skill, I feel, that we had the ability to have that conversation and not just, avoid it.
Yeah.
A person could have a different opinion about that. I can understand a segment that wants to have an escape. Absolutely. Yes, please.
Well, there's plenty of ways to get an escape. You don't have to. You could skip around the horn that day and go somewhere else. And
I know escaping. I am somebody. I like to respond to people and read comments, even though I know what that is. I certainly have heard from enough people on topics that you would say were serious that have proved to me the intention to do that landed in a good place. And I just got off the phone with somebody, a random letter sent to me, Jimmy. And I called that person on that phone because that person needed to hear from somebody. And I was that somebody.
What was that person's reaction when Tony Reali called him?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. We're going to have another conversation too, because the first was, wow, I can't believe this is happening. But the stuff that stuff that was talked about, he needs somebody. I'm going to be there then, And that I'm not saying the network should be thinking about that when they're thinking about, but I'm just saying, you're asking me the intention of why we did this story that day or that story that day, or do I regret doing this story that day or that day? This one phone call for today made me feel like there was value, and that's enough for me. I've done enough TV every day and episodes in my career that I know how important one thing was at one point for somebody, then that works for me. The network should not be making their decisions based on that. But for me, I can sleep.
When I was thinking about, what am I going to ask Tony? What should I ask Tony? I thought I was all smart and clever because I had a great question for you.
Oh boy.
And I was going to, I messed up. I was going to say, okay, the show ends Friday.
Yeah.
What does your Monday look like? And then I realized Monday was Memorial Day.
Let's
pretend Monday wasn't Memorial Day.
My legs always look the same.
How do you think you're going to handle not having a show? Now you have kids, you have family.
Yeah, my day is always the same. It's three kids on top of me, and I'm trying to watch the game now just on my phone because my kids have already taken the TV. We broke a TV. We did this. So now I'm watching a game like this and all that sort of thing. Yeah. I'm making my wife, Shirley, 6 months ago, had a wonder about May 24th.
Yeah. You don't seem like the guy who's going to be able to just stay home and do nothing.
Oh, no, I'm not going to be doing that. I mean, I think we had this conversation, but I actively booked now my daughter's first week off of school, summer vacation. So now this is 2 weeks after the show.
Right.
Daddy-daughter summer camp at her water polo, right? Which is going to be in a wonderful place in the country. And that's great. So that's now me leaning into that a little bit. And I'm going to spend some time with a friend in the business in Miami, which is going to be more work-based. But so that's a second week.
Yeah.
So that's keeping. I am not worried, and my wife's no longer worried. I mean, I cared so much about this show. That's not going to be a surprise to anybody. So there was, like I was saying, a time maybe 6 months ago. I was like, "Are you going to be all right?" And my wife, "Are you going to be?" I mean, you, my friends, are you? Come on, you of all people. But I can cry very easily and be emotional very easily. I am walking on air, Jimmy. I don't know how. I mean, people are hearing me say this, and you can see it in my face. I'm loving every second of being on set. While I've done a million interviews and I barely know what's in the show. That's a joke. And being with my friends. And I'm going to love that Friday and what I've cooked up. The Reali cooking, Reali's cooking again. Yeah, I'm cooking again. That Friday
I was going to say, do you have it all
the real
done?
Ones.
You have everything you want to say Friday all written out already?
I think I'm pretty close now. I mean, I certainly, Dan Patrick gave me advice to kind of do that. But I mean, the real ones know how I'm going to spend the first 2 minutes and 40 seconds, I think, which how I'm going to be walking the first 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And then the back end of the show, I'm going to definitely talk about the scoring system, because to me, it wasn't just.
People still don't know what the scoring system is.
Exactly. And isn't that wonderful? But to me, there was intention behind it.
Yeah.
And I'm happy talking about that.
People will love that.
I think so. But then you asked me what I'm doing May 20, whatever. It's Tuesday now, the day after the holiday. Yeah. I'm talking with people in technical spaces, and we're, whether it's going to be up and running May 26th at 5 o'clock, whatever, I mean, we'll get there. I wanted to have I want to build a community that I already feel is here. And people have asked me through the years, Jimmy, how have you ever thought about having an average fan on Around the Horn? And my answer is different than what I knew the answer to be for ESPN. Mine is,
It's so funny you say that, because there are weeks when I don't have this podcast booked,
and
I've been so tempted to just go on Twitter and say, would anyone like to just come on the podcast?
Very funny.
I don't think,
Yeah, I see. So I don't, a network can't, again, make decisions.
Right.
On that, but I can, any space where I have a community forum that's going to be able to do sports trivia and do those little debates that I say YouTube does very well in the music space, and visual elements to this. And I want that. And I'll be launching my website this week, and my YouTube is coming up, and this forum is going to be there too.
I assume it's TonyReali.com.
That's exactly right.
Okay, good.
Nice and easy. Thank you very much. I'm not trying to plug it, and
I'll plug it.
There'll be buttons where we can connect, and I think, people make a assessment of me pretty early on that I have invited strangers to the set of Around the Horn before, maybe even without clearing it with security until we got to the actual door. But that's how I wanted to host the show for the 23 years. And that's what I can do in a new space. So if you want to go Around the Horn with me, there's going to be a place I'm going to try to do that.
Excellent.
And even if it's as silly as just me, being there with newsletters and having a back and forth with you, I'll figure it out for a little while.
Right. Yeah. I mean, listen, I do think, you mentioned Dan Patrick, and you can look at Dan, you look at Rich Eisen. It's been proven time and again, and especially now where there are just so many outlets with the gambling space coming into it, social media, there is life after ESPN. That has been proven. So if it doesn't work out with ESPN when your contract's up in August,
I've never feared that too. Yes. Yeah. They come back. They come back. I mean, yes. In my time in 23 years, we've said goodbye to people. They've come back. But I would absolutely work again with everybody I've worked with now. I would. at this exact moment in my life, I'm gonna, at least explore even more outside the box things. I
Yeah.
mean, I'd be foolish not to, and of course, they know that too.
Yeah.
But there's no doors in my. I'm not closing doors. No,
Right.
I don't live like that.
You have any more interviews to do after this one?
Yes, I'm seeing one of my friends, Connell McShane,
right.
on Newsmax, which this is my broadcast partner in college. Maybe we'll talk about the TV industry. He may just, have fun.
And what about after that?
He picked the Pope live on TV. This is another story I have melancholy of missing out. I'd be doing Pope knows ball stories on the regular. That's going to be my first 5 YouTubes. It's just going to be about the Pope and the White Sox. Of course, then I'm doing interviews with Levitard on Thursday and Kornheiser on Friday. But Jimmy, you were in that group with them. You were in the group.
It is. It is funny because you look. When I saw your age, I couldn't believe it, and it is amazing to me. Like
I've been on TV for 23 years. How is this surprising?
Because because you look young. That's what. Like I feel young. I think of Statboy not because you haven't had this incredible run on around the horn. Based on your looks, you still look young. What is the secret, Tony? What is the secret?
Clean living. I mean, I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm a little bit of a life biohacker, big believer in
Give me a good life biohack. Give me something.
Well, I was taping my mouth before anybody else was, Jimmy. I wouldn't recommend this for everybody.
I was going to say, I don't think that's a good hack.
Well, I think breathing through your nose is.
I thought you meant not to eat.
I think breathing is important, Jimmy. Right. I read a book called Breathe many years ago, and it inspired me in some ways. But I recognize, I could, for my navigating of general anxiety disorder, breathing is important. I recognized how I was working out, which was every day of the week for an hour plus, trying to get tired once, and burn through the energy. That wasn't the best model for me, and going the other way was. So I'm doing functional patterns now, where I'm moving. Jimmy, you should see me at the gym. I'm moving 2 inches every second with like 5 pounds of weight. And this is not about looking a certain way, but this is about getting a balance in my life that other parts of me were probably just working too hard. And I feel like I that's better for me. But I don't think there's any real answer for anybody. My answer is that I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying life, and even the times that are stinky are manageable because I have the best life partner in my wife and in my family. And even the times that are stinky, I've done work. It doesn't get better just with time, Jimmy. Whatever you may be going through at home, anybody. I found Tony Robbins. Now I feel like I'm trying to be this. I'm not trying to be this, but I'm just saying, because so many people have asked me about this and written me about this. It's time and work. I changed the name of work to intention in my head. Think about it in advance. So as seamless as Horn may feel like, or I do an event every now and then because it's a charity, it's 3 weeks before where I'm plotting out an A, B, C block in my head. I know we have so many great podcasts now and places even for athletes to come out and talk. I say this respectfully and as a host. Having the good time conversation is just 2 friends hanging out is wonderful, but it shouldn't have to. It's not an accident. There needs to be intention behind it too. You need to think of an A block, a B block, and a C block. And it can't just be this is just vibes and we're going. Even though I'm giving you vibes right now. Did I think about this interview in advance? I mean, I thought about some things in advance. Yeah, So there's been rehearsals in my mind for more than 10,000 hours of TV and more than the expert, whatever, Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours of being with people, So that's how I approach it.
Well, I'm glad you're in the frame of mind you're in. Friday will be the last episode. I'm looking forward to what you have to say. I'm looking forward to August, to seeing what's next. And I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's been a crazy busy week for you. So I thank you for doing this, and I wish you
You got
nothing
it,
but the
Jimmy.
best of luck.
You got it, Jimmy. You got it.
Tony, take it easy. Be well.
Thank you, Jimmy. Bye now. Gotta
Thank you.
run.
All right. Take care.